The man who has been celebrated around the world for his extraordinary contribution to basketball. NBA, the National Basketball Association, titled him as the greatest basketball player of all time. He was not just an athlete. He was a cultural force. He brought unmatched recognition to the Chicago Bulls. He was Michael Jordan. You're probably wondering, why am I talking about this phenomenal athlete? Well, this is a case study. In case studies, I study the people who have lived their lives in their zone of genius and understand the characteristics that built them up. So in Michael's case, I will study the characteristics that made him the champion that he is today and break it down into simpler components for you and I to learn from. Exciting, right? I'm very excited. So let's begin. This is part 1 of the case study. Part 2 of the case study will be released next Wednesday to Patreons. If you want to become a Patreon and have access to all the episodes, please head over to Patreon/Tracck. That is Track. If you are a Patreon or intend to become one, thank you so much. It is because of you that the podcast is free to listen to and is ad-free. My name is Sarah Hussein. I'm an engineer and a researcher, and this is Tracck, the podcast which is focused on the power of the mind and gives you the knowledge, tools, and strategies that you need to be in your zone of genius. All right, let's get to the case study. So this is part 1 of the case study, and it is called Michael Jordan Embodied the Champion Far Before He Became One. It's a strong title, I know, and you will know just why this is in place. So starting from Michael's childhood, on the 17th of February 1963, Michael was born to Dolores, a bank employee, and James, an equipment supervisor. Michael had a good family growing up. He had both his parents and he had 4 siblings, so 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Michael's parents played a huge role in impacting him in a positive way. So Michael's father, he taught him how to live the good life, how to stay away from the streets, how to live a respectable, hardworking life. Michael's mom, on the other hand, kept him grounded. She taught him how to sew, clean, how to do the dishes, how to do the laundry. Most importantly, though, Michael's mom shaped his mind, his belief systems, his image about himself, his image about the possibilities that he can take up as he grows up. In Michael's words, "My mother is my root, my foundation. She planted the seed that I base my life on, and that is the belief that the ability to achieve starts in your mind." This is a key teaching. And a side note, it is also in complete alignment with the philosophy of this podcast. It is a mind game. Anyway, going back to the case study. So growing up, having this influence really helped Mike and shaped him as an individual. But Michael didn't show any, let's call them champion symptoms until he was a little bit older, until he started to play basketball with his brother Larry. And this is an important dynamic between Michael and his brother. Michael and Larry would play basketball in the barbecue pit. So Michael and Larry would compete in basketball one-on-one. And it seems pretty naive to begin with, but the incentive for them to keep playing was their father's attention. So these innocent one-on-one competitions, they turn into sibling rivalry. And that is where the competitive streak for Michael Jordan started to surface. And that is the first trait of the case study, competitiveness. When Michael reflected on this in an interview, he said, "I don't think from a competitive standpoint I would be here without the confrontations with my brother. When you come to blows with someone you absolutely love, that's igniting every fire within you. And I always felt I was fighting Larry for my father's attention. When you're going through it, it's traumatic because I want that approval. I want that type of confidence. So my determination got even greater to be as good, if not better, than my brother." As Michael stated, his competitive drive had an emotional reasoning behind it. In this case, it was to gain his father's attention. But this becomes a recurring phenomena throughout MJ's career. An emotional reasoning getting him in the right mindset to compete, to not just play, but to conquer, to emerge at the top. And to be fair, he was not harming anyone. He was not offending anybody. He was just giving a tough competition to his opponents. And that can be anyone. He left no chance for them to win. This was a known trait of Michael in his friends and also in his teammates. They observed him that Michael would do this time to time. Michael would be competitive even while playing cards, where nobody is getting anything out of it until they gamble. But Michael would still compete in those games. And it wouldn't just be a competition. It would be fierce. Michael wouldn't just want them to lose, but he would want to crush them and to really win. For an athlete, though, this trait serves quite well. So this is the first trait. The second trait that I want to highlight is of a learner. Michael was a learner. And as I had mentioned, Michael's parents had a huge impact on him growing up. So he was learning from them and instilling the right beliefs in him and instilling the right teachings in himself. But also learning basketball from his brother, learning athletics in school. In high school, Michael started to emerge as an athlete. So he played baseball, he played basketball, and football. And you're going to see that Michael is a learner throughout his career, learning new strategies, learning a way to think, learning from his peers, just continuously learning. And learning is like a prerequisite for any champion out there. Anybody who wants to be excellent in his field has to be an excellent learner. There is no way around it. So in high school, in his junior year, Michael applies to get into the basketball team, into the varsity team, but gets rejected because he was 5'11" and he was deemed too short to play. But Michael was driven and disciplined, and that is the third trait. Driven and disciplined coupled together. So after his rejection from the varsity team, Michael works out vigorously. He grows 4 inches in height, and he makes sure that he does an excellent job in the junior varsity team. He starts to highlight himself as the best in the team. He had several games where he scored 40 points per game in a row. And to put things in perspective, 40 points per game for an athlete is really good. I'm sure that the varsity team was not as competitive as the NBA, but even then, if somebody's scoring 20 points per game, they're doing well. But if somebody's scoring 40 points per game, they're making sure that they cannot be ignored. And that's what Michael did. He wanted to make sure that he is selected for the senior team because that was important for him and for his basketball career. And that is what happens. So Michael Jordan joins the varsity team of his high school. And after joining, he continued to use his muscle for being disciplined and driven because it really is a muscle. And the more he practiced it, the more he became better at it. So Michael performed excellent in his high school varsity team. And he went on to win several accolades. One of the prominent accolades was being chosen to play in the 1981 McDonald's All-American game. After Michael's promising performance, he got recruited by several colleges, and he chose North Carolina Chapel Hill, where he was coached by Dean Smith for basketball. And that is where a big chapter in Michael's life begins. So he continued to excel, and in his first year, he received an ACC Freshman of the Year award. He made the game-winning shot in the 1982 NCAA championship game against Georgetown, which Michael describes as the major turning point in his career. And things were moving well for Michael. And here comes the fourth trait, identifying opportunity. So Michael identified the opportunity he had in high school. He then identified the opportunity to play he had during his years in North Carolina Chapel Hill. And he had respect for those opportunities, and that's why he could make the most of it. And while opportunities arose, he started to harness them, and that is how he moved forward. Had he not harnessed those opportunities, Michael would not be where he was at the time. Let's talk about this trait a little bit, identifying opportunities. So I want to take away the pressure from you if you feel any pressure to be at the top. But I do want to say that having an eye for opportunity is extremely important for anybody who wants to gain success. Imagine if somebody has all the traits, they have all that they need to excel, but they completely blind themselves to the opportunities that come their way. How will they ever use their gifts? They wouldn't be able to. So, identifying opportunities and making the move and picking them up when they arise is key in using your gifts. Okay, going back to the case study. So during his college days, Michael continued to excel. He received the ACC Freshman of the Year award. He made the game-winning shot in the 1982 NCAA championship game against Georgetown. And Michael describes that game-winning shot as the turning point in his career. I think that is when he was identified to be that athlete who can do something completely amazing. People started to identify him as extraordinary. And after that was the NBA drafting. And Michael was the third pick. He got picked for Chicago Bulls, and he enters the NBA, under which Michael makes history. Now, Michael entered the NBA. He's a part of the Chicago Bulls team. And he's a rookie. He's a newcomer. Nobody knows how he plays. He doesn't know how anybody else plays. And to really be heard, he knew that he needed to perform. And he did. Within 2 weeks of joining NBA, everybody knew that Michael is the best player in the team. Talk about being committed, right? Michael's performance during his rookie years was absolutely fantastic. He was not just instinctive and fast and hard to grasp on the court. He was also extremely strategic. He could study other athletes and perform according to their weaknesses or strengths. And that is also the time when he started to become famous. Very famous. The stadiums were getting sold out. People wanted to get photographed with Michael. People wanted to photograph Michael. People wanted to see him in advertisements. They wanted to see him in interviews. And Michael was getting all of that. Michael emerged as the sensation in the Chicago Bulls. People would pay to see him play because he was such a treat to watch. He was so good at his craft that the stadiums were sold out. And that was happening after a long time in the history of the Chicago team. The Chicago team at that time was not the best team. But after Michael Jordan joined it, it definitely started to get recognition and it started to improve. And Michael led the Chicago Bulls to victory in one of the games. The New York Times described him as the phenomenal rookie of the Bulls in a feature. Sports Illustrated showed Michael Jordan on the cover and titled it, "A Star is Born." So Michael was getting all the fame. And why wouldn't he? He averaged 28.2 points per game on 51.5% shooting. This is quite technical. He helped a team that had won 35% of games in the previous 3-season playoffs to emerge at the top. So he was doing quite well. The fans also voted Michael Jordan as an all-star during his rookie season. All-Star is a game where all the stars, all the best athletes in the teams come to play. And Michael Jordan was a part of that in the 1985 NBA. Remember, he entered as a rookie in 1984. And the next year, he was in the All-Star game. What an achievement. And to top it all off, he won the NBA Rookie of the Year. And with all of that, there were also a lot of brand deals and a lot of money was coming Michael's way. He had a deal with Nike. That is where the Air Jordan sneakers came in. The Air Jordan word came from Michael's leaps. Michael would have such long leaps on the court that it appeared to people watching that he was flying on the court, and that is how he got the Air Jordan name. Now, I want to pause here, and I want to just talk about his growth. So we were talking about Michael Jordan playing with his brother Larry in their backyard, and now he is a rookie in the Chicago Bulls who's absolutely killing it. It can't get better than this. It cannot get better than Michael Jordan. The growth of this athlete that is why this case study is happening, because it's absolutely phenomenal. And the traits that I have mentioned so far, Michael wasn't born with these traits. Sure, Michael was born with some gifts, like he was tall and he probably had a knack for athletics. But making himself a champion is the work that Michael did himself. And these traits that I'm talking about and the ones that I will be talking about in the rest of the case study, these are traits that you and I can pick up as well. But using them and believing in them does all the magic. So right now, the trait that is coming to my mind looking at Michael's progress as the rookie is focus. Michael was really focused. He was not just focused on the court, he was also focused off the court. So even when he was getting the recognition, even when the fame was coming his way, even when there was so much money, for somebody who's 21 years old at 1984, if he wanted, he could have gone and partied, have, taken a break. He could have gone and just relaxed. There's nothing wrong with that. But Michael was very focused. And his everyday decisions were derived from his focus on his game. So how he's going to speak, what brand deals he's going to do, how is he going to be spending his days when he's free. Everything was determined by the focus that he had on his game. And Michael was famously never seen in the circle where people are drinking or getting high, which was a common sight during that time, but he was not seen in those groups. In fact, Michael was living a life of a student to some extent. In his documentary, The Last Dance, Michael's life as a rookie was equated to a student living in a dorm. He would live a simple life. He would play games with his friends. He would spend time playing golf, and he wouldn't really go out partying and go all out. His focus remained on the game. So he knew that he wanted to do everything that would ensure that he is able to perform. And he's physically fit, he's mentally fit, he's emotionally fit. Now, moving on to an interview that Michael did when he was a rookie. And he mentioned that he wanted to see Chicago Bulls as reputed as the other big teams of that time that were the New York Lakers and one more. This mission or this vision for a rookie is quite big. It's very optimistic. He is not talking about, I want to do well and I'll see, how this goes in Chicago Bulls. He's actually setting a standard for himself of a way of thinking. And he said that I want to take this team and make it as big as the Lakers. And for a rookie, that is a very big vision. And that is the next trait. So this is trait number 6. And don't worry, I'll give you a summary of all the traits in the end of the case study in case you are missing out. So I'll give you a summary. But this is trait number 6, having a vision higher than himself. This vision propelled him to move forward and to make it big, to take big steps, to be known in a big way, to impact the team in a big way, because this goal was really, really big. And in another interview, Michael said that when he's training and when he's tired and exhausted and he feels like giving up or ending the training, he thinks about his vision. And that motivates him and pushes him to keep going. And that is so important for anybody who wants to succeed in any area. Sometimes we are in a little bit of a cycle. What happens with having a vision that is so big and so compelling that makes you so excited, right? Like for Michael Jordan, imagine if people called him during his rookie years, he probably imagined that I want to be somebody who makes the Chicago Bulls as reputed as the Lakers. So he is definitely talking about himself as one of the best players. And that is what he got known for. So the vision that he kept for himself excited him so much that those workouts, those late nights, those long games, those seemed like manageable challenges. They didn't stop him because he was so excited to reach that goal that he would keep going and he would be excited to keep going. And so having a vision that is big, that excites you so much, is going to help you keep going And the challenges that come your way, the hurdles that come your way, nothing is going to be too bad to go through. Everything would seem like manageable, doable, because after all, you're going to achieve such a big goal if you keep doing it. So yeah, this is the sixth trait, and it definitely helped Michael propel forward. Okay, there is a fun fact that I want to share. In 1985, August 26th, Michael Jordan was playing in Italy, and he was wearing his Nikes. He was playing in Italy. And so that is a year after he got drafted for the Chicago Bulls. And he goes on to put the ball in the basket. So he goes on to dunk the ball. And the glass behind the basket, it shattered because of the pressure that shot came with. And that got caught on camera, and it became a big thing, and it was a huge milestone in Michael Jordan's rise. After that, people got to know him because, wow, what a jump, what a dunk, and he got famous. And the fun fact was that the sneakers Michael Jordan wore during that game, they got sold for $615,000 in August of 2020. $615,000 for those shoes, which are sold in 2020. So they are 15 years old. But hang on, they're not even 15 years old. How old are they? So they're 20 plus 15, 35 years old. But they got sold for $615,000. I just thought it was a fun fact. And I would understand why this was a milestone and on making him known worldwide, because it was an impeccable shot. The glass shattering, slightly dramatic, got people's attention. And that is what people come to the stadiums for, right? They come to watch an amazing show. During the narrations on The Last Dance, which is the documentary that I used for my research, Michael Jordan said that he's committed to everybody who's watching him play the game. He wants to make sure that if people are paying to see him play, that he brings his best to the game. There are so many traits that are amazing about him, but just having that mindset to do your best, to give your best, to emerge at the top, and to always reach high is phenomenal. Having said that, I want to highlight, with the biggest highlight I can, I want to highlight something important. None of this is possible without failures. And failure is nothing to be scared of. In fact, one of Michael Jordan's quotes is, "I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games 26 times. I have been trusted to make the game-winning shot and missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." I love this quote because it highlights the importance of failure, and it highlights the importance of understanding what failure is, and that is a stepping stone. Failure is not to make somebody give up. Failure is not there to discourage somebody. Failure is actually a stepping stone. Failure is there to serve a purpose and to make you understand what your weakness is so you can improve it. Okay, now back to Michael Jordan and back to the NBA game. So the 1985 and 1986 season was cut short for Michael because he broke his foot and he was not able to attend games. So he missed 64 games in total, but he recovered just in time to participate in the postseason and performed really well against the Boston Celtics. This is an important point and it makes me really, really excited. Okay, so Michael got hurt and he then returned to the game. So Michael had been resting, right? Because he was injured. So when he came back to the game, he brought it all again. He brought the magic back to the court. And one of the really good opponents that Michael was playing against, called Larry Bird, said that this is not Michael Jordan. This is God disguised as Michael Jordan. I love this quote from Larry Bird because the entire point of living a life in your zone of genius is to be so involved in it and to have such pleasure from something that you do that it's beautiful artistry. You know, it's a beautiful sight to watch for people. And so when somebody's in their zone of genius, whether they're an athlete, whether they're an actor, or they're a speaker, or they're a singer, and they're really enjoying themselves and they're doing their best, it's a beautiful sight. It's just a beautiful sight. Anyway, time for Michael's sixth trait. During his narration in The Last Dance, Michael said that he always started a game with hope. It doesn't matter how scary it is. It doesn't matter how big it is. It doesn't matter how weak the team is. He is always going to start with hope. And during a game, it was, I think, one of the last games that Michael Jordan was playing under Phil Jackson, and he wins a game. He hugs Phil Jackson and says, "I had faith." And I find both of these statements extremely beautiful and extremely effective for anybody who is doing something challenging. So Michael was an excellent athlete, right? We have this established so far. He does really well. He makes sure that he stands out in his performances. People are now watching and looking up to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan has eyes on himself, right? Michael Jordan has established himself to be an absolutely good player. And look at how humble his approach is to a tough game or to any game, starting with hope. I really liked it. And this also talks about a very important trait, which is optimism. Having an optimistic mindset affects everything. It affects your psychology, it affects your physiology, it affects your energy level. Entering into every single game, no matter how big, no matter how difficult it is, no matter what the odds are, and starting it with hope, thinking that yes, you will get through it, is not only going to make you relaxed and focused, it is also going to energize your body because you're thinking in a positive way. And the thing about the human brain is that when you think optimistically, you start looking at possibilities. And when you think pessimistically, you start looking at limitations. That is the biggest difference. And the mind has an impact on the brain. The mind also has an impact on the body. So when Michael Jordan started with hope, he is putting himself in a place where he's going to give his best, despite of the result. Right? You give your best. And it obviously got him really, really far in his career. And this is such an important trait for him and for anyone who wants to succeed in life, just generally as well. Starting with hope and carrying through with faith. Because more often than not, you have very few things in your control. The only thing in your control is you and what you can do in a situation. The rest of the things, what others can do, what the environment is, what the situation is, are all external factors on which you have no control. So what you can do is to surrender and to have hope and to have an optimistic mindset. An optimistic mindset is not only going to keep you happy psychologically, and going to keep you motivated. It not only does that, it energizes you too. Your physiology changes. You feel relaxed. You feel like you can do it because you're thinking about the best possible outcome. What if you are optimistic and you're hopeful and you have faith and you're just going for it? You're laser focused and you perform and you do your best and you fail. Let's say that this is a scenario. You fail after doing your best. What is going to happen? That failure is valuable because that is a stepping stone. Remember, failures are always stepping stones and they give you something important to learn from. So in either case, you are winning. It's a win-win situation. Giving your best, but still failing means that there is something that can be improved, that can be learned from, and that is what you take away from that. And giving your best and winning is just a beautiful feeling, right? That is what everybody gets in the game for. Okay, and this brings us to the end of part 1 of the Michael Jordan case study. A reflection. In the beginning of the case study, I said that it is titled as Michael Jordan embodied the champion far before he became one. Do you see why now? Because throughout his childhood, the time when he was learning from his parents, when he was competitive with his brother, when he was disciplined and driven during high school, when he was respecting when he was identifying opportunities during his college years, when he was focused during his rookie years, when he had a higher vision as he became the rookie of the year, and as he was optimistic. All of these traits contributed to Michael Jordan's self-image. And that actually starts very early on. That starts, as we saw, when Michael had a huge influence from his parents. That started then, when his mom was putting the seeds in his mind, putting the right belief systems in his mind. And that propelled him to dream big and to go after his dreams, because he started to see possibilities of those dreams coming true. So all of these traits are a part of the self-image which started constructing in his childhood, and that is what the title is about. That he embodied the champion far before he became one, because the self-image in his mind of being the best player was far before he finally got credited by the NBA as the greatest player of all time. And so that's a beautiful end to the first part of this case study. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. I absolutely had a fantastic time watching Michael Jordan's documentary, The Last Dance, on Netflix. This is not sponsored. I'm just a fan. And watching his interviews, what a treat. Case study part 2 will answer some important questions. Why did Michael leave basketball in 1993? How did he make his comeback? And the skills that made him reclaim his position of the best in the game. Michael had food poisoning during an NBA championship game. Did he thrive after that game? And if he did, what are the skills that he needed to thrive? What was the mind-body connection that he needed? Then also the research behind that mind-body connection. And what are the skills and characteristics that helped him retain his composure after being shown in the public eye in a bad light by a book written by Roland Lazenby? All right. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I will see you next week. Till then, look after yourself.